When a homeless girl risks everything to save a billionaire's son, neither of their lives will ever be the same. An unforgettable tale of courage, kindness, and a life-changing gift. The city of Atlanta was loud and busy, full of cars, tall buildings, and people who always seemed in a hurry. But in the middle of all that noise, there were quiet places too. Dark corners, alleys, and cold benches where people no one noticed tried to survive. Zariah was one of those people. She was only 15 years old, but she had already seen more pain than many people ever would. Zariah had once lived in a small apartment with her mother and younger brother. Mika, her mother, worked hard cleaning houses, and though they didn't have much, they had each other. But when her mother got sick, everything changed. At first it was just coughing. Then she began missing work. Doctors said it was serious, but treatment cost money they didn't have. Zariah watched her mother grow weaker every day, and she felt helpless. When her mother died, Zariah's world broke into pieces. She and Micah were taken by social workers. They were supposed to stay together, but that didn't happen. Her brother was placed in a foster home far away. Zariah ended up in a group home with strangers who didn't care about her. The rules were strict. The food was cold. The nights were long. She felt like she didn't belong anywhere anymore. One night, she made a decision. She left. With nothing but a small backpack, some snacks, and an old photo of Micah, she ran away. She didn't know where she was going, just knew she couldn't stay in that place. For the next year, the streets became her home. She slept in parks, bus stops, and once even under a playground slide. She learned where to find food, sometimes from trash bins behind restaurants, sometimes from kind people who gave her $1 or $2. She went to libraries during the day just to stay warm. She learned to avoid dangerous people and how to disappear when she needed to. Even when things were hard, she never stole. And she always shared what little she had with others who needed it. Zariah wasn't like other homeless people. She didn't do drugs. She didn't get angry or scream at people. She watched. She listened. She remembered the things her mother had taught her. Always be kind and never give up hope. She often thought about Micah. She wondered if he missed her. She hoped he was safe and that maybe one day they would find each other again. Every time she passed a group of kids, she looked to see if one of them was him. Every little boy with curly hair made her heart stop for a second, but it was never Micah. One cold evening, Zariah sat near a bakery. The smell of bread made her stomach growl, but she didn't ask for anything. Instead, she watched the people walk by. They wore fancy coats and carried shopping bags. No one looked at her. She was just part of the background like the trash. Kenor, the broken, stylish. She pulled her jacket tighter. It was torn in 2 places and barely kept her warm. Her fingers were stiff and her toes felt like ice. Still, she didn't complain. She just sat there, waiting for the night to pass like all the others. Later that evening, the sky began to turn dark. It started to rain. At first just a drizzle, then heavier. Zariah got up and walked to the back alley behind the bakery where she sometimes slept. She used some cardboard and old plastic to make a little shelter. It wasn't much, but it kept the worst of the rain off her. As she settled in, she heard a noise. At first she thought it was just a cat or maybe a rat. Then she heard it again, a soft whimper. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like a child. Zariah stood up slowly. Her heart started to race. Carefully, she followed the sound deeper into the alley. It was dark, and the rain made it hard to see. She squinted and stepped carefully, trying not to slip on the wet ground. Then she saw him. A small boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, was curled up behind a dumpster. He was soaking wet, shaking badly, and his lips were blue. He didn't move much, just whimpered softly.
Ow.
Beside him was a jacket that looked expensive and way too big for him. Zariah rushed over. Hey, it's okay, she said gently, kneeling. Beside him, his eyes opened just a little, but he didn't speak. He looked scared, lost, and completely alone. Zariah touched his face. It was ice cold. She checked his pulse. It was there, but weak. She remembered a poster she had seen in the library once. Something about hypothermia and how dangerous it is. She had also read a first aid booklet from a shelter. She didn't know everything, but she remembered some things. And right now, she needed all of them. She pulled the boy closer and wrapped him in the jacket. Then she started rubbing his arms and legs, trying to get his blood moving. He wasn't responding much. She panicked for a moment. Her eyes darted around. No one was nearby. No cars, no police, just her and this boy in the rain. She took a deep breath. "Come on, stay with me," she whispered. Then she began CPR. Her hands trembled, but she focused. She pressed gently, but firmly on his chest. She counted out loud, just like the booklet said. 1, 2, 3. After a minute, the boy gasped. It was weak, but it was something. She wiped rain from his face and kept going. Finally, a man from across the street spotted her and came running. He saw the little boy and called 911. Soon, flashing red and blue lights lit up the alley. Paramedics rushed in, and Zariah stepped back as they took over. One of them looked at her and asked her name. But before she could answer, she slipped away. She didn't want to be taken back to the system. She didn't want questions. She had done what she could. That was enough. As she walked away in the rain, she looked back once. The boy was on a stretcher now, with warm blankets around him. His small hand twitched. He was alive. That was all Zariah needed to know. She found another dry spot under N. Old bridge, and curled up. Her clothes were soaked, and her body ached. But in her heart, there was a strange feeling, a kind of quiet warmth. She had helped someone. She had saved a life. She didn't know who the boy was. She didn't know that the jacket beside him was from a designer brand that cost more than anything she had ever owned. She didn't know that the small wristband on his arm was a security tag, that this child was the son of one of the richest men in America. She didn't do it for a reward. She didn't do it for attention. She did it because it was the right thing to do. As the rain kept falling and the city lights shimmered on the wet pavement, Zariah closed her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, something good was coming. Maybe life still had surprises left for her. Maybe in the quiet corners of the city where no one looked, heroes were being born every day, and she was one of them. Zariah didn't sleep much that night. The sound of the rain hitting the concrete under the bridge kept her awake. But it wasn't just the weather, it was the image of the little boy's face, his cold skin, the way his tiny hand had barely moved, and the look in his eyes that showed he had almost given up. She couldn't forget any of it. Even after she had left him with the paramedics, a part of her heart stayed behind. She wondered if he was okay, if he had made it through the night. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where he came from. All she knew was that he was small, lost, and alonged, just like she had been once. She thought about how different his world must be. His jacket had been clean, soft, and expensive. His shoes didn't have holes, and the tag on his wrist, she'd seen those before. Wealthy kids wore them at hospitals, private schools, and even day camps. That boy wasn't like her. He came from money, from safety, and yet somehow their paths had crossed in the darkest part of the city. The next morning, the sky was still gray. Zariah stood up, stretched her aching arms, and walked toward the main street. Her stomach growled, and her fingers felt stiff from the cold. She went to a church where people sometimes gave out breakfast to the homeless. Today she was lucky. A volunteer handed her a warm cup of tea and a piece of bread with butter. As she sat on the curb, eating slowly, she overheard two women talking nearby. "Did you see the news?" one of them said. "That billionaire's son, they found him. In an alley last night, someone saved him. They say it was a homeless girl." Zariah froze. Her eyes widened. "No way," the other woman replied. "I heard he was close to dying. The doctor said if she hadn't done CPR, he wouldn't have made it. They're looking for her now. Dad's offering a reward." Zariah's heart began to race. She didn't want a reward. She didn't want attention. She just wanted to stay invisible. The last time she was found by the system, they put her in a group home where she was bullied and ignored. She had run away for a reason. If they found her now, they might send her back, or worse, separate her even further from her brother. She quickly stood up and walked away, her tea still half full. As she moved through the city streets, she noticed something unusual. People were holding up phones, watching a video. Some were talking about the girl in the hoodie and how brave she was. Zariah's breath caught in her throat. She looked around, panicked. Did someone record her? Later that afternoon, she found an electronics store and peeked through the window. Several TVs were playing a news report. A well-dressed anchor stood in front of a hospital. 6-year-old Eli Warren, son of billionaire Daniel Warren, was found last night in an alley in Atlanta. Authorities say he had wandered away from a private charity event during a brief moment when the security team lost sight of him. What happened next shocked everyone. A homeless girl, believed to be around 14 or 15 years old, found the child unconscious and performed CPR until emergency crews arrived. Doctors say her actions saved his life. Then they showed a blurry video. It had been taken by someone across the street. Zariah could see herself wet from the rain, kneeling beside the boy, pressing on his chest. Her hoodie was pulled over. Her head and her face was mostly hidden, but she could tell it was her. She stepped back from the window quickly. Her heart thudded in her chest. What if someone recognized her? What if the police came looking? She walked fast, cutting through alleys and side streets. Her mind was spinning. She wanted to feel proud of her all. She had saved a life. But all she felt was fear. In her world, attention was dangerous. It brought questions, social workers, files, and rules. She couldn't afford that, not when she was so close to finding her brother. Elsewhere in the city, Daniel Warren sat beside his son's hospital bed. Eli was awake now, though still weak. His small fingers clutched a stuffed animal, while machines beeped softly around him. Daniel had never felt such fear in his life. When the security team told him Eli was missing, he had nearly collapsed, had imagined the worst. But then he had seen the video. He had watched it over and over, this girl, soaked in rain, giving his son CPR with careful, steady hands. She didn't look like a doctor or a nurse. She didn't even look like she belonged there. But she had done what no one else did. She had saved Eli, and then she disappeared. Daniel leaned back in the chair, rubbing his tired eyes. For all his money and power, he had never felt so helpless. He didn't know this girl's name. He didn't know where she had come from. But he knew one thing: he had to find her. He held a press conference outside the hospital. I want to speak directly to the young girl who saved my son, he said into the cameras. You are a hero, and I will do everything I can to thank you. If you're scared or hiding, please know you have nothing to fear. I just want to meet you. I want to know your name. I want to help you the way you helped my son. The story spread like wildfire. Newspapers picked it up. Bloggers wrote about it. People on social media used hashtags like #FindTheAngel and #HomelessHero. Artists started sketching what they thought the girl looked like. Some said she was a guardian angel. Others said she was proof that real heroes don't wear capes. They wear torn hoodies and live in shadows. Zariah saw it all. She kept to herself, hiding in abandoned buildings and out-of-sight corners. People on the street talked about the girl. Some believed the story. Others thought it was just made up to sell newspapers. But no one suspected the quiet girl walking. Alone with her hood pulled low, a week passed. Zariah visited the library again. She sat at a computer, pretending to search for jobs, but really just reading updates about the boy. His name, I felt familiar now. Learned he had been missing for less than 2 hours before she found him. Apparently, he had wandered away from a party after a fight with another kid. No one had noticed until it was almost too late. Doctors said he was recovering well. He had told them about the girl who helped him. She held my hand, he said. She talked nice. She made me warm. His words melted people's hearts across the country. But still no one could find her. Zariah's photo was shared grainy, unclear, with her face mostly hidden. Some guessed she was from a nearby shelter. Others thought she might have come from another city. Few even doubted she existed. But Daniel Warren didn't give up. He hired private investigators. He offered a large reward, $50,000 for information leading to the girl. He talked to every shelter, food bank, and youth center in Atlanta. He asked hospitals if they had treated anyone who matched the girl's description. But Zariah had never used her real name. She had no ID. No records. To the world, she didn't exist. Until one day, everything changed at a small medical clinic that helped homeless people. A nurse was going through supplies when she noticed a drawing pinned to the wall. It was a child's sketch of a girl in a hoodie, kneeling beside a boy. Above it, in messy handwriting, were the words, "Thank you, lady who saved me." The nurse looked closer. She remembered a girl who had come in weeks ago with a cut on her hand. She had been quiet, polite, and didn't give her name. The nurse remembered her eyes sharp, kind, and sad all at once. She checked the security footage from that day. Then she compared it with the video from the alley. Her heart skipped a beat. She called the number listed on the flyer, offering the reward. The news reached Daniel Warren within the hour. He drove straight to the clinic. When the nurse showed him the footage, he sat still for a long time. "That's her," he said softly. Zariah had no idea they were getting close. She was staying in an old bus parked behind an abandoned car lot that night as she wrapped herself. In a thin blanket, she looked up at the stars and whispered her brother's name. "I hope you're okay, Micah," she said. "I miss you." She didn't know that by morning her world would be different forever. The sun rose slowly over the city, painting the sky in light shades of orange and pink. Zariah opened her eyes inside the broken-down bus where she had spent the night. The air was cold and her blanket was thin, but she didn't complain. Sat up, rubbed her tired eyes, and looked outside the dusty window. The streets were still empty, except for a few early birds digging through trash bins and a man pushing a shopping cart filled with cans. To most people, it was just another day. But Zariah had no idea that today would change her life forever. She folded the blanket carefully and placed it in her backpack. Then she slipped out of the bus quietly and started walking.
She knew the
morning routes, well, where to find leftovers, where the church might give out breakfast, and which alleys to avoid when certain people were around. Her life ran on survival, and survival depended on staying invisible. That had worked for her until now, but what she didn't know was that someone had found a clue. The nurse from the clinic had sent the security footage to Daniel Warren, and now a search was quietly happening in places Zariah had passed through every day. But this time, they weren't looking for a criminal or a runaway. They were looking for a hero. Daniel Warren stood in his office early that morning, looking at the photo of the girl from the clinic footage. Her face wasn't clear, but her posture, her hair, and the oversized hoodie all matched the girl in the video who had saved his son. He had watched that alley video so many times, he could see it with his eyes closed. He knew her courage, her calmness. She didn't panic, didn't run away until help arrived. Whoever she was, he owed her everything. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Tell security to widen the search around the west end of the city. Check shelters, clinics, and abandoned buildings. I think she's still out there." At the same time, a woman named Mrs. Hill, who worked at a community center for troubled youth, received an email. It was from the clinic nurse. Attached was the photo of the mystery girl. Mrs. Hill stared at it for a long moment, her hand over her mouth.
Ow.
A few months ago, she had given a girl a sandwich and a pair of socks. The girl had been polite, very quiet, and she had left before Mrs. Hill could get her name. But now she thought, what if that was her? She printed the photo and asked around. No one knew her name, but a few kids said they had seen a girl like that near the old train station. Zariah was sitting by that very station later that afternoon. She had found a half-eaten sandwich on a bench and was carefully removing the parts with mustard. She didn't like mustard. As she ate slowly, she saw a van pull up. 2 men in suits got out. They didn't look like police, but they looked official. Her stomach twisted. She quickly stood up and slipped behind a pillar, watching them from a distance. They showed a picture to a man sitting nearby. He looked confused, then shook his head. But Zariah saw the paper they were holding. It was her. It's the image from the video. She panicked. Grabbing her backpack, she ran in the opposite direction. She cut through side streets, her heart pounding. Why were they looking for her? Had she done something wrong? Would they take her away? Put her back in that group home? She didn't know that the man searching for her didn't want to punish her. He wanted to thank her. She just knew fear. Fear had lived inside her for so long that even kindness felt dangerous. She found an old warehouse and slipped inside. It smelled like mold and rust, but it was dry. She sat down, hugging her knees. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them away. She hadn't cried in a long time. She couldn't start now. At that moment, across town, little Eli was sitting. In his hospital bed, coloring a picture of a girl with a hoodie and a big smile. His nurse asked him, "Is that your friend from the alley?" He nodded. "She was nice. She made me warm." Daniel Warren came in just then and looked at the drawing. He sighed deeply. "We're trying to find her, Eli, but it's hard." "Hiding. Maybe she's scared," Eli said, his voice soft. Daniel paused. He sat on the edge of the bed. "You're right. She probably is. She's been through a lot." Eli nodded. "She gave me her coat. She didn't have gloves, but she rubbed my hands so I wouldn't freeze. She talked to me. I don't remember what she said, but her voice was soft." Daniel touched his son's hand gently. "She saved you, buddy, and I want to save her now." Back in the warehouse, Zariah sat for hours, listening to the city's sounds outside. She thought about the boy againly. She hadn't known his name then, but now the whole city was talking about him. People called her brave, a hero, but she didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a girl who had nothing, trying to survive one day at a time. Then something strange happened. As the sky turned dark, she heard a voice outside, not shouting, not angry, just speaking calmly through a megaphone. "If you can hear me," the voice said, "I want you to know we're not here to hurt you. We're just here to say thank you." She peeked through a crack in the warehouse wall. A van was parked outside. A man in a black coat stood next to it, holding a megaphone. She couldn't see his face clearly, but his voice was strong and warm. "You saved my son's life. You didn't have to. You could have walked away, but you didn't. You stayed. You helped. You gave him warmth when he had none. I don't know your name, but I want to know you." Zariah's hands trembled. "I know you're scared." The man continued, "But I promise, I only want to help. I want to make sure you're safe, that you have food, shelter, and people who care about you. You don't have to hide anymore." Zariah stood frozen. Her heart pounded in her chest. Every part of her wanted to run again. But something inside her whispered, maybe it's time to stop running. She stepped slowly toward the door. Then she stopped. What if it was a trap? What if they sent her back? But then she remembered Eli's face, the way he had clutched her hand, the way his small body had shivered. She had saved him. And now, maybe someone wanted to save her. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The man turned. He saw her. His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't move. "Is it you?" he asked gently. Zariah nodded slowly. Daniel stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. "Thank you," he said simply. She looked down, unsure what to say. "I'm Daniel Warren," he said. "Eli's father." She nodded again. "You saved my boy," he said, "and I'll never forget that." Zariah looked up. Her eyes were tired, scared but brave. I couldn't leave him," she whispered. Daniel smiled softly. "I know." Then something unexpected happened. Zariah fainted. Her body had been pushed to far cold. Hunger, stress, was all too much. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. His guards rushed over, but he waved them back. "Get her to the hospital," he said. Now, within minutes, Zariah was in an ambulance. Warm blankets were wrapped around her. For the first time in years, she was going somewhere safe. At the hospital, doctors checked her carefully. She was underweight, dehydrated, and exhausted. But she would be okay when she woke up. She was in a soft bed, covered in warm sheets. She blinked at the ceiling, unsure where she was. Then she heard a small voice. "You're awake." It was Eli. He was sitting in a chair beside her, holding a teddy bear. "I brought you this," he said, placing the bear on the bed. Zariah smiled weakly. "Thanks." Daniel came in next, sat beside her carefully. "We've been looking for you," he said. "You scared us," Zariah looked away. "I didn't mean to." "I know," he replied, But you don't have to hide anymore. She swallowed hard. Are you going to send me back? To the system? Daniel shook his head. No, not if. You don't want that. Tears welled up in her eyes. I just wanted to find my brother. Daniel paused. What's his name? It's Mika, she whispered. He's 9. Daniel stood. Then we'll find him. I promise. And for the first time in years, Zariah believed someone. Zariah lay quietly in the hospital bed, watching the sunlight sneak in through the blinds. The room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of the heart monitor beside her. It was warm here, peaceful. Clean sheets, soft pillows, a nurse who smiled. Every time she entered, Zariah still couldn't believe this was real. Just a few days ago, she had been sleeping on cold concrete floors and eating from trash bins. Now, she was in a room with flowers, warm food, and people who asked if she was okay. But even with all this comfort, her heart still carried the heavy weight of worry. Her little brother Micah was still missing. She had lost him months ago, when the group home they were staying in split the children between different facilities. One day Micah was gone. It's just like that. No one told her where he had been sent. Since then, every day had been a battle to survive while also trying to find him. She had gone to shelters, asked strangers, and even checked missing child posters at libraries, but Micah was nowhere. She never gave up, though, not until she found him. That was her only mission in life, until she saw that little boy, Eli. Lying helpless in that alley, now, for the first time, someone was offering to help her. Daniel Warren was a man of his word. The moment Zariah had whispered her brother's name, he had called his lawyers and investigators. He didn't care how long it would take or how much money it would cost. He had made a promise to her, and he wasn't going to break it. He had already asked his tech team to scan every child welfare database, every system where foster children were registered. He had power, and now he was going to use it for someone who had nothing. While Zariah rested, Daniel visited her every day, sometimes with Eli, sometimes alone. He never pressured her to talk, never made her feel like she owed him anything. He just sat there, offering quiet support. He brought her clean clothes, books to read, and even warm socks. Zariah didn't know how to accept kindness. At first, she thought there must be a catch. No one had ever done something for her without expecting something back. But day after day, Daniel kept showing up, and slowly, Zariah started to believe that maybe he truly cared. One afternoon, Eli climbed onto the bed beside her with a juice box in his hand. Do you have a favorite color? He asked, looking curious. Zariah thought for a moment. Blue, like the sky on a clear day. Eli grinned. Mine's red. Like fire trucks? She smiled. That's a good one. They laughed together. For a moment, it felt like they were just two regular kids, not a billionaire's son and a homeless girl. There was something about Eli that made Zariah feel at peace. He didn't see her as dirty or broken. To him, she was just the girl who helped him when he was scared. Later that evening, as Zariah sat watching the news in her room, there was a gentle knock on the door. Daniel walked in, holding a brown envelope. We found something, he said. Softly, her heart skipped a beat. We checked with the Department of Child Services. There's a boy named Micah Carter, age 9. He's in a foster home about 2 towns away. Zariah sat up straight. Is he okay? He's healthy, Daniel replied. But he's been moved 3 times in the past 6 months. Family he was with didn't want to keep him. He's now with a new one. Tears filled Zariah's eyes. Can I see him? Daniel sat beside her. I'm arranging it, but we need to follow some legal steps. You're still a minor, Zariah, so things are complicated. She looked down, frustrated. They always are. Right. But Daniel said gently, I have lawyers who can help. And if you're willing, I'd like to be one of the people helping you. She looked at him. Why? Daniel sighed. Because you helped my son without knowing who he was. You had nothing, and you still gave him everything you had. That kind of kindness is rare. I don't want you to disappear into the system again. She stayed quiet. I want to offer you something, he continued, not charity, a real chance. To go to school, live in a safe place, get proper care. And if you allow it, I'd like to be your legal guardian." Zariah stared at him, speechless. She had never had a real family, never had anyone fight for her. Could this man really mean it? "I don't expect you to say yes now," he added. "Think about it. No pressure." He stood up and placed the envelope on the table. "Inside is everything we found about Micah, photos too." As he left the room, Zariah opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were papers, letters, and 2 small photographs. One showed a skinny boy with curly hair sitting at a table coloring. The other showed him standing in front of a foster home, looking straight at the camera with a half smile. Zariah pressed the photo to her chest and cried. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, court discussions, and emotional moments. Daniels. Lawyers arranged everything quickly. They contacted Micah's current foster home and arranged a supervised meeting. Zariah was nervous the entire time. What if he didn't recognize her? What if he was angry she hadn't found him sooner? But all her fears melted the moment the door opened and she saw him. Micah stood there, holding the hand of a caseworker. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on her. For a second he looked confused. Then his mouth opened in surprise. "Zariah?" he whispered. She ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "Micah." They hugged tightly, both of them crying. The room was silent except for their quiet sobs. Daniel watched from a distance, emotion heavy in his eyes. "You came for me," Micah whispered. "I never stopped trying," she said. "I looked for you every day." He clung to her tightly. "I missed you so much." It was the reunion she had dreamed about for months. And now, because of one moment of bravery, everything was changing. After the meeting, the process to bring Micah into Daniel's care began. It wasn't easy. There were background checks, evaluations, court dates, but Daniel spared no effort. He hired the best family lawyers, made sure all records were presented properly, and worked closely with child services to ensure Zariah and Micah could stay together. Zariah had agreed to let Daniel be her legal guardian, not because she needed his money, but because she trusted him. In a world that had abandoned her so many times, he had chosen to stay. He didn't treat her like a burden, treated her like a daughter, and for Micah, Daniel offered the same. Promised safety, love, and a future. Zariah and Micah moved into the guest house behind Daniel's mansion. It was a cozy 2-bedroom home with bookshelves, warm lighting, and even a little garden. It didn't feel like a stranger's house, it felt like home. Zariah was enrolled in a private school where she received tutoring to catch up on the years she had missed. At first, she felt out of place, surrounded by wealthy students with perfect uniforms and fancy backpacks. But she worked hard. Her teachers quickly saw how intelligent she was, how curious, how determined. Micah was placed in a school nearby. He made friends quickly and loved reading more than anything. He even told his teacher that his big sister was his hero. One night, as they sat together on the couch watching cartoons, Micah looked up and asked, "Do you think we'll ever have a normal life?" Zariah smiled and pulled him close. "This is normal enough for me." He leaned his head on her shoulder. "Me too." Daniel often joined them for dinner. He treated them with respect, not pity. He asked about their day, laughed at their jokes, and shared stories from his own childhood. Slowly, they became a family not by blood, but by choice. One afternoon, while walking through the garden, Zariah asked him, "Why did you help us?" Daniel stopped and looked at her. "Because I saw myself in you." She raised her eyebrows. "When I was young," he said, "I was angry and lost. My parents worked all the time, had everything money could buy, but I felt invisible. Then one day, someone helped me, a teacher. And I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I'd do the same for someone else." Zariah looked down. "I'm still figuring out who I am," he smiled. "You're strong, kind, brave. That's more than most people ever become." She felt tears in her eyes but blinked them away. "You didn't just save Eli," Daniel said. "You saved me too. You reminded me of what really matters." That night, Zariah sat on the porch, watching the stars. Micah had fallen asleep with a book in his lap, and Eli had gone home with his dad after visiting. The world felt different now, softer, brighter. She had once believed that life would always be cruel, that people would always leave, but now she knew the truth. Sometimes, the people you save become the ones who save you right back. Life after the hospital was not always easy for Zariah. Even though she was now safe and cared for, the world she had entered was very different from the one she had known. It was filled with people who had money, influence, and plans, but it was also a world she needed to learn to live in. There were new rules, new expectations, and a new kind of pressure. But Zariah was determined. She had come too far to give up now. The first days at school were a challenge. Zariah had missed many years of education because she was homeless and moving from place to place. The other students were well prepared and spoke about things she didn't understand. Sometimes she felt out of place and awkward. Her clothes were different, and her way of speaking was more streetwise. Some students looked at her strangely, others whispered behind her back. But Zariah kept her head high, remembered Eli's words about bravery, and she refused to let anyone make her feel less than she was. Her teachers noticed her strength and intelligence quickly. They gave her extra help with reading, writing, and math. She loved learning about science and history, especially stories about people who had changed the world. She started to dream about her own future where she could help others who were like her. Children without homes or families. She wanted to make a difference. At home, Micah and Zariah settled into a routine that felt warm and safe for her. The first time in years, Micah blossomed in his new school. He made friends easily and began to open up about his feelings and fears. Zariah became his protector and guide, teaching him about kindness, trust, and hope. They spent evenings doing homework together, sharing meals, and sometimes just sitting quietly, grateful to be together. Daniel Warren continued to support them quietly but steadily. He never acted like a boss or a savior. Instead, he became a part of their lives as a mentor and friend. He took time to listen to their stories, to understand their struggles and dreams. His presence gave Zariah and Micah a sense of stability they had never known. One afternoon, Daniel surprised them with tickets to a concert featuring a famous singer they both loved. Zariah was nervous at first about going to such a fancy event, but Micah was excited and hopeful. The night of the concert was magical. The music filled the air, and for those few hours the worries and fears melted away. Zariah realized that she deserved happiness and joy just as much as anyone else, but the journey was not without difficulties. Zariah often thought about the streets she had left behind, the friends she had lost, and the hardships she had faced. Sometimes memories would come flooding back, making her anxious and sad. At those moments, Daniel arranged for her to speak with a counselor who specialized in helping children who had experienced trauma. Talking about her feelings helped Zariah heal slowly. She learned that it was okay to be scared sometimes and that asking for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. Inspired by her experiences, Zariah began volunteering at a local shelter on weekends. She wanted to give back and help other homeless children. She listened to their stories, offered words of encouragement, and shared her own journey. Her courage and kindness made a difference to many, and she found purpose in helping others find hope. As months passed, Zariah's confidence grew. She started speaking at community events about homelessness and the challenges faced by children like her. Her story touched many hearts, and she became a symbol of resilience and bravery. People began to donate clothes, food, and funds to the shelter. Inspired by her determination to change lives, meanwhile, Eli and Daniel remained close friends of the family. Eli often visited Zariah and Micah, and the children played together, forming a bond that went beyond their different worlds. Eli's kindness and innocence reminded Zariah of the day she had found him in the alley, and she never forgot how a simple act of courage had connected their lives forever. Zariah's dreams grew bigger. She wanted to finish school, go to college, and study social work or psychology. She wanted to understand why children ended up homeless and how to prevent it. She imagined starting an organization that would provide shelter, education, and support to thousands of children in need. Daniel promised to support her dreams in every way he could. He set up a fund to cover her education and helped connect her with mentors who could guide her. Zariah felt hopeful for the first time in her life. She had gone from hiding in the shadows to standing in the light, ready to shape her own future. One evening, as she sat on the porch with Micah, watching the sunset, Zariah reflected on everything that had happened. The fear, the loneliness, the cold nights, and now the warmth of a family and a home. She realized that saving Eli had changed not only his life, but hers as well. It had opened a door to a world she'd never imagined possible. Micah looked at her and smiled. "My hero," he said simply. Zariah hugged him tightly. "And you're mine?" As the stars appeared in the night sky, Zariah made a silent promise to herself to never forget where she came from, to always help those in need, and to live a life full of courage, kindness, and hope. Her story was no longer just about survival. It was about love, family, the power of a single act to change everything. And with that promise, Zariah stepped forward into a new chapter, one filled with endless possibilities.